The intersection of history and politics isn't often discussed, but it's an important intersection that everyone benefits from if they know to look for it and if they know to take it seriously. Because lots of the problems that are affecting people right now have affected people in the past. And as a result, lots of different groups, lots of different members of political ideologies, of different religions, of different races, of different genders, have tried to solve the problems that are affecting those of us in the present right now. And they've had different results. Sometimes they've produced successes. Sometimes they've been able to actually solve real problems. And in imitating them, we can replicate their successes. But oftentimes, there have been failures that we can learn from and that we can avoid, which would also improve people's lives even if we don't feel it. All over the world, people are facing problems that range in severity and that range in deadliness to the people being affected by them. And as someone who looks at the intersection of history and politics, I look for the different kinds of responses that governments and cultures have made to different kinds of problems. And I look for what's worked and for what hasn't worked. And that's just one example of how people could apply the intersection of history and politics to things like sociology and things like current events. But this is an important thing to say because lots of people don't realize this. Our problems are not as unique as we might think. And because of this, different people have tried different things, and as a result, they've gotten different results. Lots of problems have been successfully overcome, and in many cases, they've been overcome more than once. And I think that that's something that people benefit from hearing. I think it can be a little bit humbling to some people who think that their country is unique in some positive way. That means that its problems cannot be overcome the same way as other countries have overcome their problems. But I think that it's valuable. And I also think that it leads to more efficient problem solving and to more efficient governments. Because a government that knows better than to waste time trying to come up with a ill thought out response to something instead of looking for how other countries have solved problems, other countries and other governments have solved problems in the past, is a government that saves time. And in saving time can often save lives. As a historian and as a historical communicator, I value not only the past itself, but people also knowing that past and taking into account the past when they contemplate their own actions. As a political person, I value efficient governments, and I value legitimate governmental responses that save time, save lives, and save energy. And it's because I value these things that I care about the intersection of history and politics. It's because I value these things that I want people to learn from how other governments, how other politicians, and how other societies have responded to ongoing problems affecting people's own homes and home lives. And I want people to be humble enough to accept that if a response worked for one place, it could actually work for another, and that that's not a bad thing. I want people to be humble enough to accept that the problems that they're facing, that their neighbors are facing, that their leaders are facing, are probably not as unique as they might seem at an initial glance without the proper historical context. As someone who values the intersection of history and politics, I would like politicians to talk about how other places have solved the problems that they are trying to solve. I want them to talk about the successes and the failures of other politicians, other leaders, other governmental styles to very real problems. And I don't want them to present themselves as geniuses who are trying some novel approach to some problem that's never been successfully solved before, because oftentimes that's not the case. I want them to be honest with you, their constituents. I want them to be honest with you not only because you voted for them or because you could vote for them or for their opponent, but also because they respect you. I just want people to talk about the intersection of history and politics, because I think this is a very important and criminally under-discussed part of history and part of politics that people don't often have the time or energy to get into, but is worth the time and energy of going into and investing in. Because I think that the time that would be saved, I think that the lives that would be saved, and that the living conditions that would be improved if we genuinely started looking to see how other places have solved problems, would be worth the arrogance that we would lose, and would be worth the energy that we spent in researching these things. If you agree, I would love to know in the comment section. I want to begin a conversation with anyone who's watching this video, and I also want to encourage you to let other people join the conversation as well by sharing the video, by letting your friends see it, and by just telling people what you thought of what you heard today.